This is Scott Ware with the Radiance channel, Radiance Magazine on Xpnsion Network. I have with me today Jeffrey Carrillo of Starfire Water, a very special water. We're going to talk about why. Say hello, Jeffrey.
Hi, everybody. This is Jeffrey with Starfire Water.
It looks like you're crawling through a portal right now or something. You're halfway through.
I am.
Right?
This is a tensor ring, and everybody would benefit by making these. These are very powerful for strengthening your energy field, and more than that, because everybody shares things that do that. Mm-hmm. Copper, just even regular copper, it very much helps your system integrate energies more smoothly through your system, so you don't have to take on the whole event. It's like, sure. A lot of people are like, oh my God, I was there for 5 minutes, versus I was there and I surfed with it. Versus I was in that tumbling wave.
Sure, like a place like this. We're at Conscious Life Expo right now at the LAX Hilton, and there's a lot of energy moving through here. Yeah, so you're more grounded because you're wearing the copper.
It helps me a lot, and for me, not only grounded, but it makes me enjoy, I'm not in pain being here.
Okay.
You know, it's like some people, to go to Vegas as an example, it's like overwhelming.
Yeah.
This is not Vegas, but there's a lot of energy.
That's right.
And it's just still a lot to process.
Sure.
And so this, though, for me, is a way to share about the water conversation my friend Karen talks about so much, is that this water inside of your body is being structured or less structured by how much your relationship with the 5 elements is deepened. The more deep you get into your earth and your fire and your air and your space, the difference of how the water will expand into that or embrace these other encounters of its larger self.
Okay, so that's the person individually what they're doing, but what is different about Starfire Water? How is it made? What's special about it?
So what we're doing with water is we're taking water that had maybe not been at the highest frequency, like somebody who is sad, and water's sad a lot when it's coming through the pipes in the city or through the river. And we get that water anywhere in the world. This was made in LA, and we're saying thank you, water, right? And we're then also saying we're sorry for that this has happened.
It's almost like ho'oponopono.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then we are cleansing it, like washing somebody's foot. It's like the most intimate thing you can do, and you're in the desert. Somebody to wash your feet.
That's right.
That's like they're gonna get dirty. So we get dirty with the water and we clean it physically, and then we give it a cleanse with frequency and different structuring water technologies like vortexing, like different types of sine waves or frequencies you can play that are specific to the geometry of water. And so what I talk about a lot is how you can potentiate sacred geometry. You could potentiate even like the golden means or these Fibonacci shapes, is that if you're starting off with a measurement before you make something golden ratio to it, if this measurement has no like master resonance with you, then you're just making something golden ratio like a speaker box that doesn't make a sound, like an instrument that doesn't make sound.
Right.
But if you start with a higher harmonic measurement, right, or play frequency for the geometry to water or anything, but if you start with a higher harmonic measurement, anything you make golden ratio to that is an expansion of that already powerful energy. So water inherently has a powerful geometry relationship with us, and if you bring different types of energy, frequency or stimulation to that geometry, that changes how the water is able to express itself and to invite interaction from the outside world.
Meaning bringing nutrients to the body, and that's
all of it. So
all of it. And vibration.
You're like, why when you're making a tea, does the flavor open up when you're heating it? Because you're opening up the ions. You're making that water where it creates energy by heating it. And it's not that it's hot. The action of that has to do with the ions moving.
Right.
And so
the quicker the movement, the hotter the water.
Yeah, so that's why it doesn't work always the same when you're cooling, even though cooling can burn. But when you're freezing the water, it's slowing that down. So that's usually not the quickest way to put energy through something, because you're cooling it down. So what we're doing with water is we're stimulating the water, we're having a relationship to water in its own language.
Ah.
So if I speak to you like how I'm speaking and you're thinking, what is he talking about, right? It helps when I occasionally drop into things that make sense to you as I start going deeper and deeper to these things that somebody else hasn't heard before, but they've heard everything else we've already heard.
So let's go back some. We've heard the golden ratio, God ratio, the God. So what you're doing is there are patterns that occur naturally in nature, like the spiral, the Fibonacci sequence, and all those things, and you are directing that into the water, because frequently, or a lot of times, water you find is dead as well, right? Or like you said, sad.
Yeah. There's no death, it's just life,
Okay.
But that life may not be in expressing itself.
I like that. Okay, perfect.
With awareness.
There you go. Okay. So we won't use that phrase anymore. Yeah, I like that. So, and then it's sad because, and by the way, there's a lot of, I know there's a lot of antidepressants found in our water. There's a lot of chemicals found in the water. So you get this water, and normal companies, they're filtering it for only so much, but the energy of it is still coming through to the person. But you're doing some extra filtering, if you will.
Yes.
That is creating a much more superior product.
But also, you can look the same way at yoga. You're bending your body. You're doing all these things to make to bring softness to your body, softness to your breath. For the people who are into Tai Chi, but the same thing in yoga.
Sure.
But more sensitivity, right? More articulation, and a deeper relationship. So when we bring this relationship of intimacy to water, looking at it as like a goddess, something you like really like bow down to.
Yeah.
You bow down to the beauty of it. And so on the front of my booth, and this is really what I'm talking about here today, and for this weekend, on the front of my booth, on our banner, I have a statement that's a famous statement while walking into a very, very ancient sanctuary for the Mother Nature, or for what was called a goddess, right? Or for goddesses.
Right.
And she says, or what they told you when you're walking into this space, it says something like, it says, when you come into this space, right? That's what it says. But now the statement says, to like worship me, I don't need your devotion, but your sincerity.
Yes. Your authenticity, your sincerity.
And then it just goes into like, and then anything you're doing from that point is that if you're doing it to that person, it is devotion from wherever you can connect with. So are you connecting to your emotions? Are you connecting to your relationships, your relation, or to your water, to the directions, all these things, right? Medicine wheels, you know, Stonehenge, all these places, you know, it's like relating to space. I'm at a crystal store, Thunderbolt bookstore in Santa Monica, and he has this crystal with 6 sides or 8 sides or 12 sides. One's for using that energy to work on your subconscious. That geometry works on your subconscious. At this geometry at 6, that's more like physical and then emotional until you're finally getting into the self, right?
Right.
Which doesn't really need tampering, but you can change how that self energy expresses, you know, by making like the Pink Floyd, by making that geometry, that light's gonna come away in that order. And I used to lecture for Fujifilm. I'm also a photographer, and photography means to draw with light. So I tell people I'm always doing photography, because even though I think we're beyond light, but we express as light, but people like to call themselves light. Knowing that you are light, you are always a photographer. If you don't know you are the light, you're just photography.
Nice. Okay. Now bring that back to the water.
So water,
Yeah.
thank you. When you change the optics, the lens, your water body, each water drop is a lens. When you make that more of a higher ability to open up the spectrum of light coming through it, optically we know that makes a Leica lens better, because the picture's better. It's more resolution. You'll feel it. And when you change your water body optically, which would be energetically, changing the interference pattern of how energy expresses through the water medium, you're living in high definition. And water is the emotional body. You know, looking at the South, at the Native American tradition, you honor the emotion. I'm born this month. I'm a water bearer, right? But I'm an air sign, Aquarius. I'm like, why? I've been told that forever. I'll say, oh, I'm a water bearer. But I'm like, why though? And it's because the air sign can carry the water and be untouched by it. The air can lift, can go through the mind, can handle the emotion without being wet by it.
So that's when you knew you were following your mission, your course.
Knowing I'm following my mission is just enjoying the story I'm sharing.
When anyone drinks water, or when you drink water, is there something you think? Is there a blessing? Is there a thought you have in your mind? Or you've already done the work on the water, so it doesn't need that?
You should always be present with whatever you're with. To be with somebody that already knows you love them. Valentine's Day is coming up. We know the answer to that. Always say I love you. And especially to water. Because it's loving yourself. Water is life, and you are life.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And we've seen scientifically how water reacts to different emotions, to anger, to, yeah.
Okay, so this is the biggest thing.
Okay.
Remember everything I've told you that we've shared with you, and remember everything you know about water already. And now Google 4 words, Nobel Prize. You know that, especially you scientists who don't look at anything unless it's a Nobel Prize.
Right.
And you'll still doubt it, which is great.
Yeah.
That's the method of scientific inquiry. So Nobel Prize, water memory. If you Google that, you'll get a video in YouTube land. Or if you Google, you'll see video, hit video search. It will take you to Luc Montagnier,
Okay.
Nobel Prize winner, and he's proving water memory in a way that everybody in the water world is talking about. So I talked to Michiko, Emoto's person, right? She maintains his legacy since working with him for 10 years from 2004 to his passing, right?
Yep.
When I met her, I told her, thank you for continuing his legacy and sharing, making a new legacy of water with all of us together. But she hears that all day long. I wanted to just check in with her because sometimes we only hear our sphere, right?
Sure.
And Nobel Prize is sometimes thought of differently than praying to water or pictures of water. So I said, are you familiar with Luc Montagnier to her? She's like, her reaction quote was, he's the new guy. And she's being so beautiful in saying that. He is not the same guy. He's not the new guy. Luke's talking about dry science and letting it speak for itself. He's showing how you can play the frequency of a dilution of a virus. He's not even calling that homeopathy. He's saying play that frequency of a dilution to water and then see what happens when you touch that water to nucleotides, which are the building blocks of DNA. So if you have Legos on the floor and I take a piece of which are called nucleotides, if I take a piece of your DNA or your DNA and I have it touch those nucleotides, if it was your DNA marker, that would now be your DNA. And that's called PCR, polychain reaction. That was a Nobel Prize by Carey Mullis 54 years ago. And Luc Montagnier says, we're going to do PCR. You all know what the Xerox machine is for DNA. We're going to now take PCR, and instead of taking a piece of DNA, physical, analog, taking physical to physical and making the whole thing, we're going to take the frequency of a dilution of the physical. So you're not just taking the frequency of the thing to make it more beautiful. We're taking the smallest remembrance, like the fractalness of it, the frequency of that. Now we're talking sacred geometry and everything you could build on top of that. Stefan Wolfram, all these guys talking about cellular automata, making life from geometry. Anyway, so he took that frequency of that dilution and he said, I'm emailing this to you guys, all these laboratories all over Europe, on camera, who hate him basically. But they're on camera to show, hey, look, this is how it should be, pretty much. Okay. That's why they apologize at the end. The end of this is basically, he said, take this frequency, which is binary. I emailed it to all you. Now play that frequency to water in a sound box. It's called an anechoic chamber. We are calling that meditation when no other influence is affecting you.
Right.
So the water is meditating. They're not saying that. We're saying that. And then he says, take that water now out of that chamber and now add it to the nucleotides, which is PCR. but now not physically, just the frequency, now energy. And those nucleotides rearrange into the original DNA expression of the HIV virus in front of them. And it could work with any medicine or virus, or now when they apologize and said this is a real new horizon for biology, we are now seeing that you do not need physical X to interact with physical Y to produce physical Z, mom and dad, to make Javier or Jason. And so the point is this: on camera, these scientists said this makes something like immaculate conception real. And these guys didn't want to talk about water memory. So what I'm telling everybody is tell everybody about this video. Google Nobel Prize water memory, or remember the name Luc Montagnier. But now they've addressed, not admitted, we all know that, but they've addressed that frequency is enough, and more than enough, and you're enough. But when you own the frequency of love, what coherence does that make to manifest different geometry? Look, you can make form out of the ancient languages. Again, the form and the sound, the name were one and the same. They're interchangeable. So the more you hold that frequency, the more you manifest that form. The more you honor the form, the more you're letting it express itself. Anyway, water.
I like that last.
H2O.
I followed that last statement. I did. I'm going to go back and watch this again.
And thank you at the same time.
Some people are following it. Some
I
people,
have to say it though. I have to.
Here, I'm going to listen to it a second time too. And in 10 seconds, let's tell us. So people can go to youarestarfirewater.com.
You are Starfire Water. It's about you, and that's it.
Perfect. Thanks for doing this. Thanks for being here. And thanks for watching. Bye-bye.
You asked me, can you do 15 minutes?